Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, I Know Exactly Where I'm Getting Out. A little over 20 years ago, I trained to be an over-the-road driver at a trucking school, then got my first few jobs with various companies under a trainer. The long and the short of it is, I was not cut out to be a truck driver. My first trainer had a flat route, Jersey to Cali, then back, total time 7 days. He made it abundantly clear that if I didn't get him back in 7 days, there'd be hell to pay. So after we got back, and I crashed in my room for 3 days from paranoia and no sleep, I got back out there with another company, whose trainer goosed his rig to over 100 miles per hour. Most know that there are governors on trucks, that, at the time, won't let them go over 65 miles an hour in gear. This genius decided with a 40,000-pound load, to come rocketing out of the Denver Rockies at 65, shift the truck into neutral, and let gravity and Newton's laws speed the truck along. Okay, next company. The guy with the porn collection that filled my bunk and a habit of spittin' chewin' tobacco left, right and sideways was almost the deal breaker. When I was done with him, I decided to stay with the company, but asked for a new trainer, waiting in a rinky-dink motel on a $50 per day lien against my paycheck. After 2 weeks, watching trucks go in and out, I see this wrecker dragging a truck and trailer into the lot. It literally looked like someone had picked the truck up, flipped it upside down, and ran it over a mandolin slicer. The cab, the engine. The whole thing just looked planed down to an X-Acto knife's angle. But, I say to myself, I'll never be that dumb. To be clear, this was all before GPS, MapQuest or Google Maps became popular. Back then, FMCSA rules stated that a driver could only ever work 10 hours a day. Trainers and trucking companies played with the numbers, by figuring a truck could do 650 miles in that 10 hours. So that's what you had to do before you got out of the seat. Never mind that you can almost never start at 65 miles per hour, nor stay at 65 miles per hour without breaking some kind of law. You cook your logbooks by measuring your work time based on total miles traveled, then write the rest off as you eating, sleeping or showering, so FMCSA, never wonder if you're being overworked. Essentially, your 10-hour day was usually 12 to 14 if you didn't break the law. Little wonder why regular coffee, Red Bull, and Monster energy drinks were regularly going in and out of truck stops. Enter the line. The line was also a no-nonsense trainer. He wasn't a bad guy, so long as you were booking miles. But as I started going, I started feeling myself slow down. I just didn't have the heart to keep doing this. When I got tired from driving, I started to slip into sleep. The constant drone of the engine, the white lines on the road blinking in and out of sight, it happens sadly. If it ever happens to you, don't brush it off. Pull over and get some sleep or get out of the vehicle to wake yourself up. Well, the line didn't like that one bit. My last day with him, I'm somewhere near Chicago, on a highway I don't remember getting on. That was pitch black save for my headlights. I know I was headed to Chicago, but not where I was or how I was supposed to get there. I managed to just barely pull the truck back onto the road after drifting over the hazard bumps in the road. Trust me, the road to hell isn't paved with good intentions, it's just paved. I stopped the truck, walked back to the sleeper and woke him up. Me and TL, the line. Me. Listen, I'm exhausted. I can't even understand the map anymore. I don't know where I'm going. I gotta get some sleep. TL. What? Look, just keep driving till you get to the stop, then sleep. Me. Dude, I'm passing out behind the wheel. I barely got us back onto the road once. Does it make sense to play with both our lives for a load? TL. This is my truck, me. So you have 2 choices. Drive this truck, or grab your stuff, and get out here. And if this little thought enters your head again, just remember that wherever you stop next that isn't our drop, is where you get out. For a moment, I wanna just rage at the guy, but I know I'll never get anywhere. But anger brings a wonderful clarity to the mind. So, where I stop next is where I get out. Okay, boss. I grab the map book and zero in on my location. I check our delivery point, and realize that I must have missed some turnoff, because we were supposed to drop somewhere outside of Chicago, but I was still headed towards it. But Chicago had what I wanted, a Greyhound bus stop. So, I drive 3 more hours, focused on ending this misery. We had a satellite uplink to our dispatcher, and I, being tech-savvy and upset enough, put on some of my music to cover any beeps from it, because boy was I off the route. I pull into the bus terminal right next to a parked patrol car, shut the truck down and start grabbing my gear. The line wakes up as he hears me packing. TL. So we're there. Yawns. Me. Nope. TL. What? I told you that if you stopped this truck again outside of the stop, you were getting out. I grabbed the sleeper curtain and flung it wide open to show the bus terminal. Me. I found your terms acceptable. This is where I'm getting out. The line starts to get up with fury in his eyes, and though he was smaller than me, it's clear he wasn't letting size dictate anything. Neither was I as I flashed my logbook in his face. Me. It's gonna be an interesting discussion with that officer there, how you've had me driving for the last 14 hours straight, even when I told you I was too tired to drive. The line glares at me like he was trying to pummel me by thought alone. TL. You'll never work as a driver again, I promise you. I smile again, a mix of cheer, madness and rage in my little laugh that makes even the line move back. I've since developed a laugh that could make Mark Hamill's Joker think twice in the right moment. Me. Again, something we wholeheartedly agree on. By the way, dispatch might want a word with you. I know where we are, not our drop point. I climb out of the truck and he speeds off into the early morning. Turned out the cop car was empty, because the officer went inside to use the bathroom. But I borrowed some money from my mother, who was all too eager to get me back to Jersey after what I told her. Slept for 4 hours on the terminal floor before my bus. Best day's sleep of my life. To be fair, I understand the industry is getting better. With more precise GPSing and smartphones that can keep drivers in touch no matter what. The days of drivers being worked till they crash is slowly coming to an end. But that's also why trucking's now paying $70,000 plus for a driver with 5 years and no accidents. There's very few that weren't trained to treat their rigs as a bumper car. I drove truck one last time as a wildcatter on call to deliver stuff to Delaware. Not a bad job, but I realized trucking just wasn't for me. I got into computing, and haven't looked back since. Next one is titled, Guide to Avoid Alimony, Have a Best Friend. Central characters. I, 30 male, my best friend, Ace 30 male, and my piece of crap ex who I was married to for 5 years, 28 female. We were married right out of college after our graduate and undergrad respectively. Ace is single. Story. 2 years ago, I worked at a startup in South Carolina and put in long hours that seemed to have a strain on our marriage. While our sex lives were good, I felt my ex was being distant at times and asked her about it, only to be reassured that there was nothing wrong and she understood the long hard hours. I both liked and hated this job. It was flexible in the hours, but I ended up working way more than a traditional 9 to 5 for similar pay at the time. Ace and I are best friends of over 13 years since high school. There are a couple issues we have polar opposite stances on, and are really passionate about our positions, but in general we get along really well. One night I invited him over for beer and we got a little too drunk and ended up arguing a lot over this issue. It didn't get physical, but some really harsh words were said by both parties and it ended with him leaving the house and me visibly angry. The next morning, I called him up first thing and we both apologized to each other and that was that. However, my ex was unaware of this and came up to me badmouthing Ace. I thought this was a little atypical of her since she doesn't do that normally, but chalked it off to her being comforting and affectionate towards me. I told her it wasn't a big deal and that Ace and I were fine and left for work. Now in what I can only describe as winning the Powerball, I met Ace at the gas station on the way to work. He normally works from home and was on his way to visit his dad for the weekend. We decided to have a couple beers to make up for the previous night and headed to a small quiet bar I like to visit. There, the unexpected happens and Ace receives a call from my ex. She asks if he was alone and he says yes, looking perplexed. This lovely woman then proceeds to apologize for my behavior the previous night and asks if she can make it up to him. He pretended that he can't hear her and puts it on loudspeaker for both of us to hear and asks her to repeat. My ex proceeds to proposition him for sex using the cliched excuses of being lonely and how I work long hours and that how I wouldn't find out given our, me and Ace, falling out. She then repeats all the bad-mouthing she had done earlier in the day to me with the caveat that I said all those things. Now my ex is no Einstein, but surely there's no way Ace buys that crap. He tells her that he will call her in a bit because of a client and hangs up. I was devastated with my face buried in my palms because I knew the marriage was over. I have a few strict boundaries in life and I don't care if it's a 5-year or a 50-year marriage, cheating means divorce. The only thing was if I could somehow get out of it without losing much, cause I knew the alimony would duck me over given that I made nearly 3 times what she made. We didn't have kids and only little in marital property, and I was okay with losing half the joint account since I was young and there wasn't a whole lot. South Carolina has at-fault divorce for adultery, which bars the recipient from any alimony. The issue is that we didn't record the call and there was pretty much no proof outside of me and my friend's word of adultery. So I hatched a plan to allow the cheating to happen. Ace was hesitant because she was my wife at the time, but honestly, I saw red and that woman was dead to me, so I couldn't care less. I wanted evidence of cheating. Now I gotta say, Ace managed to keep his cool and come up with a plan that seems so simple it's almost movie-like. We worked out the kinks together and decided that we would not speak of this until everything was done and dusted. Over the next hour, we planned out everything. He would accept her offer and meet my ex shortly after I left for work. I would feign missing a file and return, only to hear sounds and start recording. Then I would catch them in the act, pretend that it was alarming and cause a fuss. To this day I think the only reason I was able to act surprised was because I was insanely angry at my ex, so all the expletives just came naturally. I asked Ace to duck off forever once I caught them and told my wife that she'd hear from my lawyer, a bluff. I hadn't thought that far. I didn't bring up the bad-mouthing because I felt it would give away the whole plan. Cue my wife pleading and crying, literally begging me to forgive her and that it was a mistake out of desperation and loneliness. I told her I needed some time alone, walked out, drove to the nearest Walmart and broke down in the parking lot. I hadn't had any time to grieve in nearly a day and had been focused on revenge. Then I called up a local attorney who seemed to have good ratings, and told him what I had. I presented it as if I caught them in the act, and didn't mention anything about the plan even to my attorney. Ace and I had figured earlier that I was technically giving consent so it wouldn't be adultery, but nobody but us needed to know that, and we were okay with taking it to our graves if we had to. Sketchy? Yes. Deserved? Also yes. At the advice of my attorney, I returned home a couple hours later to pack my stuff and told my ex I'd be living separately and that she could expect divorce papers soon. She continued to bawl her eyes out, and those were genuine tears. I think she was really remorseful, but I didn't give a duck. In fact, I drove the blade in deep. I reminded her of some of our fondest memories in college before our marriage, our honeymoon, some of the things I had done for her, etc. And how she repaid me by cheating with my best friend. It was a double-edged sword cause I started tearing up a bit, but I think it needed to be said. I ended it with "I hope you'll do the right thing," and left. I probably shouldn't have talked to her as suggested by my attorney, but hey, I had to make her feel like the piece of crap she was. I don't know if she was genuinely remorseful, or if my words stung her, or if she just broke internally, but she did not contest the divorce. I didn't owe her a cent in alimony and got away with just asset division. Some of our mutual friends caught wind of the cheating and pretty much shunned her from her circles. Her parents were kinda conservative and basically disowned her. Ace and I went cold turkey on her, and this woman basically didn't exist to me. Her standard of living just dropped drastically, and as of December 2020, she lost her job to the pandemic and had moved in with some guy according to one of those mutual friends. I'd be lying if I said the schadenfreude didn't put a smile on my face, but I do feel a bit bad for the woman that I once knew. There is one aspect I feel guilty about though. Our mutual friends who all sided with me after the affair think I'm an innocent and benevolent soul who was cheated on and even forgave his best friend. All my good fortune, next para, is apparently well deserved and I have a heart of gold. In reality, I'm quite the conniving guy who basically ensured she'd get ducked. I intend to keep it that way honestly. All they need to know is how much of a piece of crap my ex was, and I feel 100% justified in my actions. The only case I'd have considered breaking my silence is if anyone judged Ace harshly. However, Ace and I don't have mutual friends and only our professional lives intersect. Here's the happy ending. The startup I worked for became successful and I made quite a lot of money when it was sold to a bigger company, none of which went to my ex. Ace is a true bro and unfortunately lost his job to the pandemic last June. I hooked him up with a better job at my parent company because that man deserves everything in the world and more. We still have our disagreements on the issue, except now we just laugh about how it saved me from a horrible marriage. Last one is titled, I Said Hush, Puppy. In my early 20s I was living at home with my family in my grandmother's 100-year-old house in eastern NC. No central air, just a few scattered window AC units but not in my bedroom. In summer months I would prop open the 6-foot windows with a box fan to try and cool off at night in order to sleep. The neighbor who lived next door had a little long-hair wiener dog who was yippy as the day is long. It didn't get worn out yapping all day and when it got put out at night, it yapped and barked for hours. Right outside my open window. It certainly didn't care if I had to get up in the morning for work, or tossed and turned several nights in a row during a heat wave. Its owners also seemed to not hear my shouts of, "Shut up," and the dog apparently didn't speak English, so cue the revenge. I was so tired, frustrated and angry one night. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the peanut butter and went outside in my nightgown. I scooped up 3 to 4 fingerfuls of creamy, thick goodness and flung them over the neighbor's fence. I made kissy noises to get the little dog's attention and in no time, its tongue was doing the Sistine Chapel on the roof of its mouth. My mom must have heard me going downstairs at 1 a.m. and came to investigate. She stood on the back porch in her nightgown watching me, asking me what the hell I was doing. I went back inside and told her I was just trying to get some quiet and put away the jar. She started giggling, I headed to bed and so did she. She told my dad what I had done because I heard him laughing like a braying donkey the way he did when he really got tickled about something. Dog was fine and I slept like a champ. Dog must have been found by its owner covered in Skippy because the frequency it was left outside during the heat wave decreased dramatically. Blam, bitch puddin'. Thanks for listening.